don't see as many kids fight the technology. They prefer to work with it a little bit more than they did, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully some of the notes I jot down is useful to you and
Absolutely.
reflective for you. We can use that as an artifact for proving
Okay.
not only that we're working towards that goal and accomplishing our goal, but also some of those teaching standards that we talked about as well. So, transition again, what are some other ways, I want to talk about assessment just for a little bit more. What are some other ways that you could assess the students' learning and how, and assess that by implementing more technology, student learning is being enhanced? How can we assess that?
Well, one thing, through this, even though we did one of the problems together in class, they then had to take it with them, and it was an actual assessment that was collected and graded. And I went through every single person's paper and looked for all the requirements and stuff, and not a single kid had chosen to do it by hand.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was something in terms of collecting specifically for that. Observation is always some form of an assessment. You have to observe and you have to glean from the classroom, are they getting it, are they not getting it, what do I need to do? You can always do that, ticket out the door, concept, things like that. Even listening to the conversations, not just me observing, oh, they're getting it, they're not, but listening to the conversations that they have with each other and the way they talk with each other. And then, of course, your test and things like that, which they will be having tomorrow. So.
Yeah, okay. So, looking at the goal, okay, and this is, you're integrating technology,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're talking about assessment. What do you think about, especially I'm looking at that part of student learning is enhanced,
Mm-hmm.
and assessing that has been enhanced. How can we make sure of that? So could we put something else in this goal about those assessment scores comparing pre-using technology to post-technology?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something we could add in there? Do you have any ideas there?
Such as like a pre-test, post-test type of thing, or just before the lesson and then compared to after the lesson, how well they did, things like that, and then make it a measurable goal?
Yeah,
Like a percentage amount, or,
we could.
okay,
75%, 80%.
okay,
We could even talk about, look at their assessments as a whole, as a class,
mm-hmm,
how they were doing, in August, September, October.
mm-hmm,
And according to our goal, as the kids get more comfortable with the class procedures and using technology in the everyday class procedures, and using technology more in everyday lessons,
okay,
should those assessments start to creep up
mm-hmm.
in January, February, March, April?
Ideally, yeah.
Ideally, that's the goal, right?
Mhm.
So if we were to add something in here, just as a second part to this, that by May or by April, if we compare fall assessments to April and May assessments,
Mhm.
should there be an increase?
There should.
Ideally, we should.
Right.
So maybe we could set a percentage on that. What do
Okay.
you think would be best there?
Let's go with 80%.
80%, so all kids in the class will score at least an 80% or above on quizzes, tests, whatever it might be. Okay, so we can add that, and that, again, that's just trying to catch that assessment piece to make sure that student learning is actually being enhanced.
Right.
I don't think you're wrong at all there's multiple ways to assess, and I think observation has to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, grading, things like this has to be a part of that.
Mhm.
But I think that would be helpful to just set a measurable
Right.
number on it at the end.
Okay.
So if we're gonna change that, is there any extra evidence that we have my global scan, we have, the linear programming activity that we can have as an artifact. Are there any other things that we could use as evidence towards accomplishing this goal, and now kind of the one that we've added to it?
Could we include reflections from the students?
Okay.
Anything like that to say, because they'll be honest about, yeah, it helped me, it didn't help me, I could have done it without.
Mhm.
Could we incorporate that
Yeah.
besides just my assessments?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think reflections are a good thing. I I don't do this all the time, but every once in a while, I like to just ask the kids, you know, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what problems on the quiz or test didn't make sense, what problems on the quiz or test did you have no idea, you know, did you feel comfortable with? So, yeah, I think reflection, right? Anything else that you could think of there? Any other, well, I think we did talk about other technology, because you talked about clickers and those things, okay. Anything else there we could use as evidence to support that? I think I have lesson plans too.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's all right. So what should be our next steps in accomplishing this goal then, do you think? I'm gonna talk about time frames a little bit, perhaps underneath this, but what would be the next steps?
Well, in that Algebra 2 class, the next step for them is getting into that next chapter where we do a lot with the graphing calculators. So
Okay.
maybe having some more resources available for the kids, you know, maybe learn that Desmos.com a little bit better so that they don't have to necessarily even have the graphing calculator, they could have that website. I suppose the time for us to go through and make sure that I'm using the technology at the right places in terms of would it be more beneficial here rather than there. Expand that more for like you and I. Is that what you're looking at?
It could be, that's part of my, I was gonna ask this too, if there's anything that I could do to assist you in accomplishing this goal, so if there's anything that I could do to help out. And you know, we talk about resources for the kids, and I guess that's one place maybe I could come in, trying to look up, or if there's anything that I have found that is helpful to help kids with technology, I can certainly share that with you.
Okay.
When it comes to professional development, I mean, we could be looking for more apps to use in the classroom,
Yep.
because the more apps that you apply, like if you're gonna do clickers, we can use that as an artifact, we could use that as evidence.
Okay.
It's not the graphing calculators and it's not laptops, but it's still integrating technology that should enhance student learning. And it could also have an impact then on those assessments too, once we
Right.
get to that point.
Right.
So, yeah, if we, is there anything else there that,
No,
anything that you
said
could
exactly.
need from me?
Oh, that's exactly where I was gonna
Okay.
go with it, so.
So I would say, you know, as far as timeframes and things like that, I think so far you're pretty much on track. You've integrated more technology in these first few months. The assessment piece is kind of what needs to be brought along, okay? Because we would like to have something to compare back to when we get to
Right.
April and May. If we need to set up more meetings between you and I in the next few months, we can do that.
Okay.
Just see where we're at as far as what things we've added in, what things we've taken out.
Okay.
But then, yeah, by May, April, May, we'd like to look at those assessments and see if student learning has been enhanced,
Okay.
if the scores have gone up. Hopefully hopefully things improve,
Mhm.
you know. Obviously, it's gonna be a little bit tough, I think, too, because as you get through the year, the content area gets more difficult.
Yeah.
And so that plays a part in those assessments
It
too.
does.
But then maybe we don't look at comparing chapter 1 to chapter 8 or whatever. We look just within chapter 8 and after the first quiz versus the second quiz versus
Okay.
the test. Did kids show improvement through
Right.
that? I think that's evidence then that
Okay.
technology is helping and things, learning has been enhanced.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll make those changes to your goal. We talked about some time frames and accomplishing those goals. We've talked about some different artifacts. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. Did you have anything else?
No,
Okay, well, thank you again for your time.
you're welcome.
We'll make those changes for down the road.